بحكمه ومن استنى بسنة إلى يوم الدين. All praise due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on His last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and on all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. Today the Imam was presenting the topic of commanding the good and prohibiting evil. In Arabic it is known as Al-Amr bil-Ma'ruf wal-Nahy anil-Munkar. And he began with a verse wherein Allah says that we should fear a punishment which would not afflict merely those who are sinful, but would cover everybody. And sometimes Allah punishes individuals, and sometimes the community is punished. So this is, it's implying, it's talking about the situation where people are committing sins in a community and nobody speaks out against these sins or tries to stop them. And there are many examples given in the Qur'an concerning especially the Jews, about how the rabbis among them who knew the sins that the people were committing would not speak out. And so Allah punished all of them. And of course, whenever Allah gives some example concerning the Jews, it has two aspects to it. It has the aspect where it is letting us know some of the qualities of the Jews so that we beware of them. We're careful of their treachery. But at the same time, it's a warning for us that we don't fall into the same characteristics, into the same errors that they have fallen into. And he quoted, of course, the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, wherein he said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب من أخيه ما يحب لنفسه, that none of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. And like this should be the motivating force. He mentioned this hadith as like the motivating force for commanding the good and prohibiting the evil, because the same way that we see certain things that we consider good for ourselves, to protect ourselves, to earn for ourselves reward in the next life, etc. These things that we see important and good for ourselves, we should also wish for others, for our brother Muslims. So it becomes a duty for us to call others to what we recognize as good and righteousness in society, or for ourselves, for society, as well as to prohibit them from things that we recognize are harmful for ourselves as well as the society. He went on quoting another verse from the Qur'an wherein Luqman is advising his son to command the good and prohibit the evil, and to be patient. وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا أَصَابَكَ, that he should be patient about whatever afflicts him when trying to command the good and prohibit evil, because the process of commanding the good and prohibiting evil is not an easy process, because the forces of evil in the society are great. It means that they will turn against the individual. They will try to harm him in different ways. It may be just speech. The person speaks to you badly, or ignoring you, trying to make you feel bad, or slamming a door in your face, or it can come in many different ways. But these forces will try to repel, to stop the efforts that you're making. So, as Luqman advised his son, we have to be patient with whatever we find ourselves in whilst commanding the good and prohibiting the evil. And as Allah goes on to say, إِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ, and that is one of the great عزم الأمور, what did you just say this? Azima. Yeah.
It should, the five of ulul azm, like
Ibrahim, of course. But how to express that in the English expression, yeah. it is an expression of steadfastness and resolve and in affairs, but one of the best expressions of it. He also pointed out that we shouldn't have regrets in what we're doing. We shouldn't give up, feel the situation is hopeless in the process, because of course with so many people likely to reject what you're saying or ignore what you're saying, it's very easy for you to feel it's the point, and to give up trying to call these people. And he quoted again, of course, another verse from the Qur'an where Allah says, وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولِ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ, that there is nothing required of the Prophet or the Messenger beyond conveying the message. That was the principle for Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, wherein Allah was saying that to him because of the sadness that he felt when his people rejected his message. So Allah is saying that to him to build up his own strength, spiritual resolve. At the same time, that is advice to us, that we will find ourselves, because we become like the guardians of the message after the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and we are carrying out the duty that he did, without, of course, the reception of revelation. We're carrying on that message. He said, بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً, and this is our duty, that we should convey, even if it is only one verse from the Qur'an that we have gained from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, we should convey that to others. So our duty is, as messengers in that sense, to carry the message of Islam to the rest of mankind. And we will face what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ faced, maybe not on the same scale, but we will face a version of it. And so this advice is also there for us, that our duty is to convey the message. How people respond to it is not our responsibility. But of course, the way in which the message is conveyed is critical to some degree in terms of whether people will accept the message or not. Because you may have the truth, the best advice, but the way in which you give it is so gross that people don't want to hear it. Right? This is why elsewhere Allah said, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana." This is related to the same thing. We should call to the path of our Lord with hikmah, wisely, wal maw'izati al hasana, and with good speech, good preaching, a good good way in which we convey it. So we have to do it wisely, meaning that there are times when you may want to command the good, but commanding the good in a group sometimes may be evil. It'd be better to take the person aside and tell the person on the side, this is not really right, you shouldn't really do this, rather than telling in the group, because in the group that person now, his ego is hurt, he's insulted, he's going to react, and of course. So this is part of the hikmah. As they say, لِكُلِّ مَقَامٍ مَقَالٍ. In Arabic, they say that every context or every situation has an appropriate thing to be said. There's a time, and we say there's a time and a place for everything, right? There's a correct time, correct place. So in the process of commanding the good and prohibiting evil, we have to do that wisely, so that we provide whatever we can to make that message as acceptable to others as possible. And of course, he pointed out that this duty, the duty of calling to the good and prohibiting the evil, is not one of particular individuals. It is for everyone. Every Muslim is required to do it to some degree. The degrees will vary based on abilities. It could be children, it could be grown-ups. It could be people who are in a position of authority, or people who are not. We should never feel that this job is only the duty of those people in authority, or those people who are controlling the situation. No, this is the duty of every single person. Of course, it is to different degrees. As the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, and the Imam quoted, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyir biyadi." Whoever among you sees an evil should change it with his hands. وَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ, and if he can't, then with his tongue he should speak out against it. And وَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِقَلْبِهِ, and if he's not able to do even that, then he should hate it in his heart. وَذَلِكَ أَضْعَفُ الْإِيمَانِ, and that is the lowest level of faith. This is to say that one who is in a position of authority, who can change a situation with his hand, he is obliged to change it with his hand. It is not acceptable. He is not considered clear of responsibility if he is in a position to change it with his hand and he only speaks out against it. Speaking out against it is only acceptable for those who are unable to stop it with their hand. And similarly, speaking out against it is for those, or hating it in the heart, is for those who are unable to speak out against it. If one is in a position to say something, then something should be said. It's not accepted that a person just hates a thing in the heart when he can say something against it. If he hates it in his heart when he should be saying something against it, that's considered the lowest level of Iman. Hating it in the heart may be the highest level of Iman if the person has no other choice but to hate it in the heart. I mean, if that is what the circumstance, that's the only opportunity that a person has. A person is in jail, for example, chained up on the walls in a jail, in a situation of oppression. His saying anything will not be heard, and he definitely can do nothing. Then his hating the evil that is taking place in that situation is the most that he can do. That's not considered the weakest level of Iman in his case. That is in the case of those who are able to say something and to do something. For them to hate it in their hearts alone and not say or do, then that is not considered appropriate, and as such is considered of the lowest levels of Iman. But of course the hatred in one's heart has to be there even when one is prohibiting it with the hand or speaking out against it. Because if one is changing a situation with the hand, but they don't really hate it in their heart, then this change is not a real change that they will be rewarded for by Allah. This is just for show. Just to placate some segment of the society, because there's a religious segment of the society that is opposed to this. So this individual, because he wants to get in good favor with this wing, and keep them in his support, he will make some change here, right? But his intent is not, he doesn't hate it, he likes this thing actually. But he is just doing it to keep those people happy. So this again, there's no reward for that, even though he's changing with his hand. Similarly, the person who speaks out against it. And of course, there's one hadith where Prophet ﷺ has said that, the greatest martyr, is one who speaks the word of truth, to an evil tyrant, right? And is killed for speaking out. The Imam made we mentioned of course the issue of ta'awun, that is cooperation in prohibiting the good and the evil, that this is something that wherever we're able to cooperate, we should try to do it together. I mean, there's something responsibility, social responsibility, community responsibility, responsibility of the society, and everybody should feel that. I mean, it should be part of the education. Everybody should feel a personal responsibility. Because when there is no personal responsibility, then you have a situation, as you have, for example, in the States, where people may be, killed, raped, robbed on the streets, and people just keep walking by. Nobody wants to get involved. In a bar, in one corner of a bar, somebody is beaten to death, the others are sitting there, they don't want to get involved, right in front of their face. Nobody wants to get involved. They don't feel that responsibility. They fear getting involved and getting hurt. Whereas, from Islamic point of view, children, of course, should be encouraged to prohibit the evil, to command the good from their young. It should be a part of their nature. They grew up with that kind of feeling. Where in the West, if a son says to a father, Dad, you shouldn't be smoking, I mean, he's liable to get his head knocked off, right? Whereas in the Islamic society, he is encouraged to say that. If he sees his parents doing something wrong, he's encouraged to tell them. So if your child should be brought up in that way, so the child is open in that sense. If they see something that they feel is wrong, it may not actually be wrong, but they think it's wrong, they should tell you about it. Of course, it is a way for it to be told, right? But they should tell you about it, and you should encourage them to tell you about it, so that because you're human, and there's going to be times when you're going to slip, and you might fall into some error. And if you have not trained your children in telling you, then what you are going to do is you're going to become an example for them. If they're not trained and encouraged to prohibit or speak out against things which are wrong, then you are training them to follow you in whatever you do. This is what you're training to do. And you don't want that. You don't want your children to blindly follow your own actions. Because for sure you're liable to be making some errors. So you have to encourage them to speak out against what's wrong. Yeah, you have to practice, but I'm just saying you have to give them, for them to understand that you are human. You can make a mistake. So they should tell you. This is how they should feel. That Dad made a mistake. So they shouldn't feel shy to tell you. Because when they grow up with that kind of feeling, you see, then they will be constantly looking out for what is good, for themselves as well as for others. And this is a natural state. This is, you could say, part of the natural state of the believer, that he is, constantly opposed to evil and commanding that which is good. Alhamdulillah. And the Imam gave a kind of, example just to help to bring the idea home, from a physical point of view. That, when we feel that anyone in our house is sick, physically, the child is sick, whatever, we are ready to rush with the child to the doctor to get it treated. We want to get that sickness taken care of. But the spiritual sicknesses are no different. We should have the same drive to want to cure the sickness the same way that, if we have a physical sickness in the home, we want to treat it. Right? And the spiritual sicknesses are even greater. I mean, the danger and the harm which comes from them are much greater than the physical sicknesses. So, he just mentioned that to say that, we should not separate the two. We have both the spiritual and physical side. In the same way we're concerned about the physical side, we should also be concerned about the spiritual side. And the same way that when we see physical sicknesses, we try to seek to find out what are the reasons, what are the causes. It's not only that we just go and treat it, get medicine for it, but we try to find out why this happened so that we can stop it from happening again. The same way we should approach the spiritual sicknesses. If we see a spiritual sickness, we don't only try to stop it, but we should try to seek what are the reasons, what are the causes which led to this spiritual sickness, this evil, and try to then handle the causes, because this is the way you stop things, ultimately. It's not enough, for example, you cut off the hand of the thief, you chop off the head of the murderer. If there are factors in the society which are promoting this, for example, drugs or whatever, then you have to go to these sources and try to stop these sources which are creating the corruption and so on in the society. He also quoted a hadith of Prophet ﷺ, which relates also to this topic, and it was of a group of people who are on a boat. Some on the top and some in the bottom of the boat, right? And the people in the bottom were offended by the people in the top. And they decided they wanted to get some water to drink, and they didn't want to ask the people in the top. So they decided to chop a hole in the bottom of the boat to get some water. Now, one person from among them, asked them what are they doing. So they said they want to get the water. And the Prophet was saying that, if he doesn't now stop these people from doing this, not only will they destroy themselves, but they'll also destroy, the whole group. The whole boat is going to sink. Everybody's going to go. Right? So, in this way we look, when we see somebody involved in some error in the society, the harm from that can come back on the whole society. We shouldn't look at it as being restricted to that individual. And this is why you see, the Islamic laws are so severe, especially for crimes which affect the society as a whole in very obvious sense, like those of intoxicants and fornication and adultery, these type of crimes which affect the state of the whole society. The Islamic law is very severe about it, for the protection not only of the individual but of the society as a whole. So, he said then, coming on a practical level, that if we see our neighbors or we know people who are dealing in the banks and interest, they're putting their monies in the bank and they're receiving interest, that we should speak to them about it, try to correct them, try to clarify to them the error that is involved, that this is totally prohibited in Islam. It doesn't matter whether the banks here, for example, are giving interest. That's not what makes it allowable or make it not allowable. The point is that Allah in the Qur'an has prohibited it. He and the Prophet ﷺ have declared war on those people who continue to take and give interest. And the Prophet ﷺ has said that interest has 70 different branches. The simplest of those branches is equivalent to a man having sex with his mother. So, this is telling us that riba is something which is interest is something which is so despised that the Prophet ﷺ, by Allah's command, is equating it with incest. So gross a sin. So we should encourage others, if we know of others who are involved, putting their money to banks, etc., they're receiving interest. We should encourage them to give this up and to go towards the Islamic banks or invest their money in other ways. Similarly, if in our families, we notice a brother, his wife is not covering herself properly Islamically, exposing herself, or daughters are exposing themselves, then it is also our duty then to speak to them, because they are the people who are responsible. They are the people who can change it with their hands, because they are the head of the family. The women themselves, of course, they're in error, but the person who is responsible to correct that error in the family is the head of the family, the father. So if we know, brothers in whose families there are these laxities, then it is our duty to mention it to them. He quoted, towards the end, he quoted the Surah Al-Asr, which is a surah in which emphasis is placed on righteous deeds, belief, and what in the end is referred to as tawasaw bil haqq. That is, advising each other to be truthful and with the truth, calling people to the truth, and also advising them to be patient. The idea of, again, truth, calling each other, advising each other, and also to be patient, because once you're involved in that process of advice, then you have to be patient. And of course, Prophet ﷺ had also said, Dinul Nasiha, that religion is also good advice, sincerity in giving us that advice. And in the second part of the khutbah, he just summed up, revised the principle of calling to the right and prohibiting the evil, and he pointed out that there are three basic conditions that those who are going to embark on it should they should fulfill. One is that they should have knowledge about what they're calling people to. Right? We shouldn't be going on some vague piece of information. In other words, if we're brought up with something from our culture, or we heard somebody say without really getting solid evidence, then this is not enough for us to go and call people to what we believe here now to be right. It's not enough. We have to find out the truth of the matter. When we know what is the truth of the matter, based on the Qur'an and Sunnah, the information given to us by the early righteous scholars and knowledgeable people of this time, then we have that body of knowledge, then we can call people to this, because it's based on knowledge. In so many places in the Qur'an also, Allah tells us that we should ask those who know. If you really don't know, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Also, وَلَا تَقْفُوا مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. We should not be taking positions on things in which we have no knowledge. The second condition is that we should be gentle in giving advice. We have to do it in a gentle manner. Allah says also in the Qur'an, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If you were, in reference to Prophet ﷺ, if you were rough and gruff, in the way that you gave the message, the people would run away from it, run away from around you. They wouldn't listen. So it is essential that the person has, a gentleness in the way in which he advises others. And I'm sure we've experienced that. So many times the person may be doing something wrong, but if you react to it, you shouldn't be doing this. Then the person, even though what you're saying is true and everything, they just are not taking it the right way. They won't take it the right way. Very few people are able to take it the right way. Whereas, when you catch yourself, you tell it to them sort of gently, really, it's not so good, and maybe we should try it. Then people, there's a possibility, a good possibility that they will accept it. And the third condition he mentioned, is that of patience, that we have to do it patiently. We have to be patient with how people are going to react. We should not give up what we told the person once. We try a different approach. And we don't give up on the person and feel that there's no hope for this person, until we have no opportunity. Or if the person just tells you, don't get out of my face. I don't want to see you. Just shut up. I don't want you. If the person puts it that way where you have no chance, there's no, okay, well then you have to, you have to leave that situation. Perhaps, not necessarily that you write the person off, because that person may come to you in another circumstance, for something else when they need you, right? They come to you now, they've forgotten this and they've come to you now in need, and in that time of need, whilst you're helping them, you also remind them of the other thing, right? You bring it back to them again, inshallah. So, this is the approach, that the person who is going to be involved in calling others to righteousness and prohibiting evil, then he has to have that preparedness. He doesn't give up hope. He puts his trust in Allah. He knows Allah rewards him for every time he tries. It doesn't matter how the people react. It doesn't faze him. It will to some degree. We're human, right? But what it is that we try not to let it faze us or affect us to the degree that it affects our ability to continue with the process of calling to the good, prohibiting the evil. So, I don't know if there are any comments or questions.
Actually, I was having one another question out in my mind. By the way, because I was discussing this thing or the khutbah with my brother, while coming to the mosque. The first question is, you see, somebody says that why you are, for example, why you are calling people non-Muslim people to Islam. On the other hand, we don't have, you see his word, we don't have, say, typical or optimal Islamic community. So our calls will be nothing, will be ignored, since we don't have this typical or optimal Islamic community. So what we call people Islam, they don't, because they are seeing Muslim, what they are doing, what they are supposed for drinking, and so on, so all these evil things. So whatever you call them, they say, see, you are calling to some Muslim. Because he says that Muslims now they are not giving a good example. So his argument is that whatever you call non-Muslim people to Islam, they won't accept. So you should forget about this one and go call Muslims to Islam. And when you reach that community or that optimal or typical community or Islamic community, then call people. Then at that time they will listen to you.
Well, you see, this approach is incorrect, because our duty is to follow the way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You see, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was in Mecca, when he was all alone, did he have the optimal Muslim community to call people to Islam? No. So to say that is ridiculous. It is going against the way of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is not the way at all. No. Your duty is to call whoever you can, whether it's Muslim or non-Muslim. That's the point. There's no difference. It's all the same. Your duty is to pass on the message. Whoever hears it can benefit from it. That is with Allah. That is with those people. But your duty is to call. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he called at a time when there was no Muslims. He kept on calling all the way through. The Muslims, this is just a part of the duty of the Muslim to inform others of Islam. The Prophet ﷺ said, بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً, convey to others, even if it's only a verse that you have heard from me. Convey it to others. He didn't say, when you have set up Islamic State, or make sure you have your Islamic State, or make sure you're practicing everything you're saying, all these different things. No. Because even though we say, ideally, it is better that a person be practicing what they're preaching, it is ideally.
The fourth point.
It doesn't mean, though, that simply because you are not practicing it, you shouldn't preach it. You know, preaching, it is ideally.
The fourth point.
It doesn't mean, though, that simply because you are not practicing it, you shouldn't preach it. You know, it's your duty to preach it. You tell people, listen, I'm in error. You know, the thing is that you shouldn't try to, if you know you're doing something, right, which is Islamically is not correct, right? It doesn't mean that you no longer call people to this thing. You call them and inform them that you are in error, so that they don't, think, look at this guy. They say, I'm trying to change myself. I'm trying to improve myself. But we should not be doing this. So our duty, the calling, is on many, many different levels. And the result of our calling, this is with Allah. Whether a state gets set up, a Muslim community is formed, the ideal example is there, this is with Allah ultimately. And we have no way to determine the future and to say, well, we will leave calling others to Islam after we establish Islam. Well, we have got any guarantee that we'll establish Islam, of course? No. So therefore, as long as one is capable of calling others to Islam, one should do so. So we have that approach is rejected, one, from the point of view that it's against the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Two, from the point of view that we have no guarantee of the results of our calling. And the command that has been given to us is to call all. We make no distinction between Muslims and non-Muslims except in our method. Of course, what we used to call Muslims will be different from what we used to call non-Muslims.
And he said that you should give them. I said, okay, if I'm going to do such a thing like that, I will give the.
منزل شريف محمد السريع.
هو هناك؟
مين عبد الرحمن؟
لا هنا. هو يبغاني اخذ ايش؟
قناة الفيزياء.
الفيزياء.
من عند محمد السريع.
ان شاء الله. شكرا.
He said, okay, I said that, okay, I will give a priority 20% to non-Muslim and 80%. He said, no. You should give 99% to Muslims, because you should concentrate on this thing. Forget about the non-Muslim. You are going to non-Muslim and...
No, it's not for us to make it.
It's difficult to reach that ideal community for now, because we are forcing anything and we don't have... I believe that we should work parallel. We call people non-Muslim and Muslim, we call them both.
And the circumstance will determine, how we make the percentage. It will depend on the circumstance. If the circumstance is such that there are more Muslims around you than non-Muslims, there's more opportunity to call them than there is the non-Muslims, because you might be in a situation in your job, for example, the non-Muslims are all big-time professionals, who you cannot reach. They don't even want to hear you. Whereas you have, around you, Muslims who are simple Muslims, who are being affected, yes, by these powerful people. They're, simple Muslims from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, also simple Muslims around here, but they've got many errors. Can you concentrate your efforts there? Of course. Not that you give up on these people, but the concentration of your efforts will be there, because that's the circumstance you're in. And that circumstance can reverse itself. You may be in a situation where your boss is Muslim, and he is drinking alcohol, for example. And you have the people in the administration, they're bad Muslims, bad examples, right? But they don't want to hear anything you have to say. But you have around you all these Filipinos, non-Muslims who are working with you. And you have a beautiful opportunity to give Islam. Then you must give most of your efforts there. You go according to the circumstance. It's not for us to say it should be this percentage or that percentage or 50-50 or what. No. Because we go according, this is wisdom, it's the hikmah. We're using the wisdom in the circumstance. We give our da'wah based on the circumstances.
And he gave an example. He said that there was an American. He was non-Muslim. He is not Muslim. And he became a Muslim. And when he goes, I think, or he travels to Jordan, then he becomes Muslim. And he becomes again Christian.
No, well,
I said, you cannot give this example, because it may, I answer him this one, it may be two things. That he has not taken Islam as something significant or something seriously, or the one who preached him or give him Islam, he has
didn't give it properly.
He has not given properly, and has not explained that he may face such a situation like that. It may convert him again to Christianity.
And not only that, you see, in the Prophet Muhammad's time, you know, when he came back from the Mi'raj and he told people about it, there were people who apostated. They apostated. There were Muslims at the time who apostated. When the Prophet ﷺ told this, you know, the Quraysh got this message. They were running around telling the different Muslims, you know, listen, you see what he's saying. He went up into heaven, and many of them apostated. They came, remember, to Abu Bakr, and then Abu Bakr said, but if he says he receives revelation from the heavens, I accept it. And that's why he was called a Siddiq. But there were other people at the time who apostated. There were people at the time also when Prophet ﷺ, when he died, where people were apostated at the time. You know, no, I'm not talking about Umar. No, Umar didn't apostate.
At least he got some, you know, he dealt with it in a way that the Muslims did not expect him to.
Yeah, but what I mean is though is that the issue of apostasy, this happened in the Prophet Muhammad's time. So we cannot, and we are not responsible for apostasy of an individual. That individual is responsible. There are errors made in the method in which it was given to him, or the method in which he took it. If there's anything we can do to correct it, we try to correct it. But the issue of apostasy, this is something which existed in the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and will exist until Yawm al-Qiyamah. So that is no argument. Inshallah, we maybe should go on to another topic. If you have another question, I think we've given this one.
Your answer, so brother, is good.
My second question is the same figure. I'm not going out. I just arrived during your now you see, now people, especially non-Muslims, trying to shameful or doubt about what is called Mutawwa. So what is a good answer for according to that or against that to replace something or to defeat all these doubts and stuff? So they are afraid of those things. When they mention this name, they get nervous and so on. So how?
And my brother, take it easy.
You know, this is an unfortunate situation.
Yes.
Where, although in a Muslim society, you know, you should have people who are commanding the good and prohibiting the evil, the method in which it is being carried out, you know, this idea of gentleness, this has been lost, as the Imam pointed out. This was a second condition. One has to be gentle. So running around and beating people with sticks, you know, shouting at people and this and that, of course, they're just chasing the people away. They're doing the opposite. Although the idea of what they're doing is a good idea, the way in which they're carrying it out is error. So it is the only thing you can do is explain to people that the concept itself is a good concept, which should be in any righteous society. But there are conditions. One of the conditions for this to be done is that the people should be gentle. And unfortunately, these people have not gotten that message.
And this does not match with the thing what we call fiqh, da'wah under.
Well, hikmah, there's no hikmah, no wisdom, no yes. This is error.
Which gives this impression about what the one who being called Mutawwa or something like that.
I mean, you can explain to them that, you know, the idea Mutawwa actually means a volunteer, a person who voluntarily calls people to good. In fact, these people are not doing it voluntarily. I mean, they're being paid now to do it. It's a job. So, because it is not really coming from the heart, you see, this also affects the way in which they do it, you know. So whereas originally it's the idea of a person. This is an ideal that a person would voluntarily go out.
Many of them are sincere, I think, they do it, but they do not. You know, they might not understand the right way to do it. I'm not, you know, defending them. But at the same time, once a lady or some ladies come to the kingdom and they know the instructions before even they come here that they have to cover and do this, and they go in the streets and to the markets without this, I think this is the first step. The government or the state has declared the instructions how should they, you know, look in the streets and do these things. So these people, when they deal with the ladies or with the others in this way, they bear in mind that they know in advance about this. And when they treated them gently and they experienced this for a long time, say for 5 years or 8 years, and with the same person, with the same faces, and they do not stop, it might be the reason that they deal with them in this way. Because I know many examples. He kept calling him for salat many times, and he passes by his shop many times to close the shop, and every day it is that he repeats the same thing. He has no choice, and he has got the power. I mean, the authority has given him the right to deal with it in this way. So he takes his stick and goes and beats him up. After calling him many times. I think this is the way the majority of them, not all of them, because some of them are just Bedouins. They come from the tent, right on, and they start the work.
Well, inshallah, we hope that that is the case for most. But it's just most of the stories that I hear, it seems to be most in the other direction.
Yeah,
and that is the few.
And they have already stopped everything. What is the result? What we see in the streets now. But once they were there dealing with it, not in the right way, at least they minimize it. At least in Temeri now, if you go to Temeri, you wonder.
Has anyone here ever seen the thousands? Anyone here seen?
Not in the masjid al-Tahir after Salat al-Jumu'ah. Those who have got from the court, the judge declared that it should be beaten. Those who are in prison, those who have done something wrong, some sin. But in the streets, they even just try to threaten. I saw it myself, just they run in front of them and they laugh. The ladies laugh because they know there's no effect of it.
I think the better is to teach the one who is involved in these things how to spread that. I mean, you should know what is called fiqh da'wah, how to call.
Yeah, but there's a lot of factors though, On one hand it is from their point of view, on the other hand it's also on the point of view of their authorities in terms of giving them the proper support, making this information really available.
To the court thinking that they'll be punished, and the court releases them. And it happens, and everybody knows it. So the reaction is to deal with it in the street.
The media, if for example the media promotes the opposite, if the media promotes the opposite, then again it's just creating a bigger problem. So there should be support for these kind of actions, from all the different segments of the society. Anytime you find that it's only one segment that is trying to do it and the whole rest of the society is going in the other direction, it's going to be unsuccessful. There will be some benefits, but it will be minimized. So the error goes beyond them. There's part of it is in teaching them and everything, but it goes beyond them. The error is on a much bigger scale. To be fair.
I have a question. Well, enjoying was right there with you. Is it applicable in the United States where, as a uncommon society, the United States as a uncommon society where evil prevails?
Yeah. It is as applicable. For example, where Masjid al-Taqwa, for example, they shut down in the area that they operate, with the crack houses where crack was being sold, drugs were being sold in the area that they live. For them to go and shut these places down, this is part of the Amr bil Ma'ruf, because in doing this, they also, promote Islam, showing that Islam is prepared to try to, it is opposed to this thing so strongly that it is prepared to shut these things down. That created a lot of good response to the Islamic message. Of course, to the degree that they're able. Of course, the government structure there, once you're under a non-Islamic system, then you'll be limited as to what you can do. But within the limits of what you can do, you should. If there are, for example, committees which are set up to stop some evil, say pornography. At one time there was even a committee which was set up to stop the record industry, recording industry from these vulgar, filthy songs and so on and so. There's no harm for Muslims to join in that. You see, as the Prophet ﷺ had joined in what they call Hilf al-Fudud, right? That there was a time when they were having a having a committee there in Mecca which was trying to deal with some evil in the society, and he joined in it. And they asked, any other questions? Do you recall what was the last hadith? That was the last one? Okay. Abu Huraira reported that Allah's Messenger saw a man sleeping on his belly. So he said, this is a posture of sleeping which Allah doesn't like. A man was lying on his stomach, sleeping, and he said, this is a posture of sleeping which Allah doesn't like. Indicating, from an Islamic point of view, and inshallah when we finish the hadith reading we'll go into fiqh, this then is classified as being makruh, or something disliked. Not sinful, but disliked in Islam, meaning that if one avoids doing it, one is rewarded for avoiding it. I mean, if it is your habit to sleep on your stomach, if you now decide, based on what the Prophet ﷺ has recommended here, to now try to sleep on your side, or on your back instead of sleeping on your stomach, you will be rewarded for that attempt, this effort on your part. Of course, if you go to sleep on your side, and in the course of sleeping you wake up in the morning, there you are back on your stomach, you're not held to account, for that, right? You are rewarded for your intent of going to sleep on your side, because you're not held to account for anything when you're in a state of unconsciousness. So the point is that we should avoid to whatever degree we can sleeping on our stomach, and those who are under our control, children, etc., we should try to encourage them to sleep on the side or on the back. And there's no, he said that Allah dislikes it, okay? That was the reasoning that the Prophet ﷺ gave. And myself, I know on one occasion when I was in Panama on a trip doing some da'wah, the community there had asked me, what was the reason? Why does Islam dislike sleeping on the stomach? Why does Allah dislike sleeping on the stomach? Well, I told them I really didn't know. The Prophet ﷺ did not clarify this beyond saying that Allah dislikes it. Right? I know that when I was with Jamaat Tabligh, they had said that, they advised you not to sleep on your stomach when you go out for 4 months, because the chances of having, wet dreams and creating problems for yourself is greater. But the point is that, women may sleep on the stomach, and this situation is not the same. So this really is not a sufficient explanation, and I would not use it, as an explanation per se. But alhamdulillah, when I was going from there, taking a flight from there to Guyana, and on the flight, they had a magazine, it was Time magazine. And this Time magazine, it was talking about back problems in America, the different problems that they have, the operations they have to do for slip disc, curvature of the spine, all the different things. They went through most of the issue was dealing with this, the different medical advancements of dealing with these back problems, everything, right? And at the end of the whole article, set of articles, at the end there were doctors' recommendations. Number 1 on the list was, do not sleep on your stomach. Number 1. They said sleep on your side or on your back. And they explained why. They said, because the backbone is the heaviest bone structure in our body. When we lie on our stomach, there's nothing to support it. So it sags downwards, because all that's in front of it is just intestines and, lungs and so on. So it sags downwards. There's no support for it. Whereas, when you lie on your side, because it's not very flexible on the side, nor on your back you're giving it direct support, you see, this is the best, postures. And they said that this lying on the stomach was the main cause of curvature of the spine, what they call way back. For old people in America, very common, people, hunched over their backs. This is because of sleeping on the stomach. Yeah, when they get older. So, alhamdulillah, there may be other harm too. This is not to say that this is the reason why it was forbidden, but you see, this is modern science bringing out the wisdom which is in the divine commandments. It is only confirmation of the basic idea, basic philosophy concerning Islamic law, that those things which have been prohibited and disliked by Allah and His Messenger, these are things which are harmful for us. Allah is not prohibiting things just for the sake of prohibiting them. It's not abath. There is wisdom. Allah is Hakim. He is the wise, Al-Hakim. So the things are done for good reason. There is harm in it for us, one way or another. If the harm is extremely great, which goes not only to the individual but goes to the society, it becomes haram. But if the harm is restricted only to the individual, makruh. It's harm, there's harm there. So we as Muslims, we accept that Allah has forbidden this thing or is disliked this thing. This is something which is harmful for us. So we avoid it on the basis of that. We don't wait until we find what is the reason before we accept it. Because similar with the issue of the pig. It is in recent times when they developed a microscope on this that they were able to find out that the pig is the carrier of trypanosis. A sickness which devastates the body. It doesn't kill you, but it makes you quite sick. Right? And the main carrier is the pig. This is medically identified in the last century. But the point is that Muslims over the last 1300 years protected themselves from that without having to know the reason why.
And even they hadn't had any, the animal stuff was not available in the peninsula here. But because of the future, because Islam is, for that time and for all the time up to the Day of Judgment, it was revealed that the Muslims should avoid it. But in fact, when you study the animal life those days,
the pig was not available. But in any case, though, still even in the early times,
it may they can find it because they were somewhat close to Persia and Rome,
Syria and Egypt and
Roman Empire.
But the areas of it when they are revealed in Surah Al-Ma'idah and the others, nothing in Arabian.
This is showing. This is showing that the Qur'an and the commandments of the Qur'an were not specific for the Arabs, to the people specifically to whom it was revealed, but it was for all mankind.
Another thing concerning sleeping on the stomach, I heard a long time ago that is related to the same hadith of imitating sleep, which is the shaitan. The shaitan uses his legs to eat and to do the good things he do, and he sleeps on his stomach. That's what I heard, but I'm not sure of.
Yeah,
about
I didn't.
6 or 7 years ago, I heard it.
The other hadith which is there, I haven't seen this hadith. I haven't seen it, and really before you relate it, you would need to confirm that it is really from hadith, right? But there is another hadith on it which I know of, in which Prophet ﷺ has said, it is the way that the people of the hellfire lie. It related to the way that the people of the hellfire lie. But to shaitan specifically, I didn't see that reference.
People of the hellfire.
Yeah. Shaitan and their brethren. Abu Huraira reported, you were getting one to me? Sorry, I thought you were waiting for a chance to... No, I saw you had gotten up, sort of like... You got up like you were getting to sleep. You're giving your knee the rest. Abu Huraira reported that the Prophet ﷺ had said that Allah likes sneezes and dislikes yawning. So when one of you sneezes and says, all praise be to Allah, it is the duty of every Muslim who hears it that he should say to him in response, Yarhamukallah, that is, may Allah's mercy be on you. As for yawning, it is from Satan. When one of you yawns, he should check and stop it as far as he can. Because when one of you yawns, Satan laughs at it. Okay? So, this is part of the adab or mannerisms of the Muslim, that when he sneezes, he says, Alhamdulillah. Others around say, Yarhamukallah. And he can respond, Yahidikumullah wa yuslih balakum. May Allah guide you and make you well. Also that he fights the yawn. It is just not his normal characteristic to be seated amongst people and cracking his mouth. People, it's very common that you see people doing this, right? In the course of discussions or whatever, something. This is just not a part of the Islamic mannerism, right? But he fights it, he tries to stop it. If he can eat it. So he expresses it inside without opening his mouth, or he covers his mouth. Right, that's the minimum, he covers his mouth. There's another hadith in which Prophet ﷺ said to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, when he yawns. Because also, this is one of the opportunities for Satan to possess people. And he may enter a person at the time of yawning. See, because this is a time of weakness. See, this is why the Prophet ﷺ is saying here that Allah likes the sneeze and dislikes the yawn. You see, this sneezing, another hadith where it says sneezing is close to life. It's like it enlivens you. Whereas yawning is close to death because it's close to sleep. This is a sign when you're going off to sleep. You start this process of yawning. And sleeping is like the sister of death. You know, there's a reference made by the Prophet to it. When you go into that state.
Excuse me, there's a hadith when Allah made Adam, the time he made, the minute he made him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, he sneezed. So as soon as he sneezed, Allah said, Yarhamukallah. There's a hadith in Surah Al-Fatih.
Okay, so this is, you know, so also this, of course when we sneeze and we say, Alhamdulillah, this, we're thanking Allah. I mean, this is part of the Islamic mannerism now, where we see that even in a simple act, like sneezing, right, we are remembering Allah. We are thanking Allah. So this is something healthy and good for us when we thank Allah. We remember Allah. So we can see this is one of the basic, I think, principles that you will find throughout the adab or etiquette of the Muslims that the Prophet ﷺ has provided for us. That we are given different phrases of praise, du'as, etc. to keep contact with Allah. Because if something happening to us from time to time, we use it as a means of remembering Allah. Because ultimately, this is what makes the difference between the believer and the disbeliever, is the remembrance of Allah. So, everything in Islam in terms of salah, zakah, hajj, everything is geared towards helping us to remember Allah. And this, alhamdulillah, is even one of the acts. And even in the yawning, which is disliked, that we try to fight against and everything, still Prophet ﷺ said to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Remember Allah, you can resist that. Seeking refuge in Him from Satan.
Is there a hadith where it says that Satan is the one that's causing us to yawn, but no one knows?
No. Well, he says here that yawning is from Satan, right? How? I don't recall a hadith of that saying, but it's implying here that it's from Satan. You know, that Satan has some factor in it. And there's another hadith which is authentic also that Satan or the devils can enter you at that time. Right? This is why you should seek refuge in Allah, because this is the point of possession is always at the point when a person is in a time of weakness, when his guard is down, when he's physically weak, whatever. This is a time when possession may take place.
That hadith is even giving a bad image of the shaitan at that time, as if you're innate in the mouth.
Yes, that is.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a leak.
Of course, he did it.
Yes.
When they yawn?
Yeah, when he yawns and he doesn't
cover his mouth.
The shaitan comes and does this thing.
Well, yeah, inshallah, maybe for next week if you get a chance to just look it up. Okay, inshallah. I think if there are no more questions or comments, we'll stop today. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. And we ask that Allah give us the courage and the strength to command the good and prohibit the evil wherever we find it, around us, in our families, in society, to the degree that we can. And we also ask that He help us to call others to this duty. Amen.